So today we are going to be introducing you to Stacey. So hey Stacey, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you guys?
Yeah,
Great,
we're
thank
good.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for agreeing to come on the show. I'm really excited for our listeners to hear a little bit about you and about your journey. So before we jump into that, do you want to just introduce yourself? Tell us just about who you are and where you're from, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so my name is Stacey. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. I'm, I met Charlotte and Jonathan in the UAE, and I've been in Dubai for the last 3 years and a couple months. Um, yeah, and I work in a very demanding environment, and um, yeah, I'm just getting to know myself, getting to learn more about myself, and just focused on being a better version of myself every day.
Excellent. That sounds amazing. And we've known you for a couple of years now, and we've got to know you quite well over that time. But for the people who are kind of like listening and that, share with us a little bit about your upbringing. Like, what was it like? And was there any challenges that you might have faced growing up?
Oh, well, yeah. So I guess growing up in the Caribbean, especially when I grew up, it was, uh, I grew up in what I guess would be considered a poorer family. I have three sisters, but my dad was married before. So I have three stepbrothers. Um, but it was just four of us that grew up. I have a twin sister. Growing up, um, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad worked in the fire services. Um, and I guess there were a lot of challenges because, of course, we didn't have much, and there were times when we wouldn't actually be sure about what's next. But my mom actually always reminded us that no one's better than you are. We're all same skin and bones. We just the only thing that's different or separates each person is where they were born and the color of their skin. And the color of their skin is just um, superficial. So no one is ever better than you. And when you're doing something, you give it your all or give it nothing at all. But there's nothing less. So even though we didn't always have everything, we knew that the benefit of hard work and that eventually hard work will always pay off.
Nice. I love
Awesome.
that. You obviously before you know you was in the UAE and before obviously our paths crossed. You was in Canada before, right?
Yes.
How
So
did
I
and then how did you get to Dubai? Like, give us a bit of backstory
oh
there.
well. So I guess well working I guess like well, when I was growing up and stuff, as I said, things were always great. I did most of my studies part time, and I just kind of happened to be blessed enough to end up in oil and gas. When I ended up in oil and gas, I worked like I guess pretty hard to try and prove a lot of people wrong because especially oil and gas in a what's considered a third world country, locals aren't always given the same opportunities that expats would be given. So it's a bit of a challenge. Also, being the only black female had its own challenges as well. So worked hard, kind of established myself, established a reputation, and then I met someone, a senior manager, who thankfully saw all my efforts and my hard work. So when she left Trinidad and moved to Canada, she insisted that I come to Canada to support her. So she encouraged me to come to Canada. I was working in Calgary for like 4.5 years. And then eventually oil and gas um, prices took a bit of a slump. It was difficult to stay there on a work visa. Ended up in Trinidad, and then the opportunity to come to the UAE to work in oil and gas arose. So I ended up here. So
I love it because
Excellent.
you've obviously already overcome so much like before we met. Obviously, like your upbringing is certainly different to our upbringing, and it's something that is probably not talked about enough. Like you said about like being the only black female. in probably a man's world, let's be honest.
Yeah. Oil and gas is pretty much a man's world. Yeah. And then even in Canada, like when I worked there, when I first went there, I worked in a company with maybe 150 people in that building, 7 floors, and I was the only black female. I was the only black person, was the black female in oil and gas. And then I was promoted like 3 times in the first 6 months. But even that had its challenges. I had to like balance trying to be professional, but earn the trust and respect of a male-dominated environment. And then moved into construction and fabrication, which is totally a man's world. But being there, being on site, dealing with everybody, and just being able to fight with the best of them. So.
What would you say to somebody that could be listening to this that is struggling, maybe because of they're not the same gender as the people in their environment or the same race or something like that? What would you say to them now, knowing everything you know now and what you've been through? If you had any wise words, what would you say?
I guess wise words would be, don't give up and don't allow people's perceptions to determine your worth. You know, set yourself apart and show people what you are worth, because otherwise they won't see it.
Nice,
that's good. Exactly. And that's a very, very poignant point as well, because I said a lot of people go in to those environments trying to please everyone around them, instead of thinking about themselves and thinking, okay, thinking about how good they are and what they can contribute, instead of thinking, oh, how am I going to fit in here? Is actually, how can I stand out and how can I prove that I am worthy to be here?
Yeah, because I knew a lot of people from Trinidad who worked in Canada as well, and they gave me the advice to try to fit in, but I never bought into that advice, because to me, I can't assimilate. Everybody is unique in their own way, shape, and form. We all have different experiences that form us, and we choose every day how to change those experiences and use those experiences to be who you want to be. So you can either be a victim or not. It's a choice.
Yeah, for sure. And it's I like obviously what you said there. It's like, it's not, you don't want to assimilate. It's like, if you want to be successful, you've got to stand out. You want to be seen to be different.
Yeah, and being different in your own right, exactly. And leaning into more of who you are. I think that's when you see people shine the most, whether that's in career, whether that's in their family life. Doesn't matter what kind of scale we're talking about here. I think the more people can lean into who they are, the happier they tend to be as well.
And they bring more to the table once you're happy. Like once you're not buying into what everybody else thinks about you. Like you do you, and you use that to give your best efforts. That's all that matters at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Listen, Stacey, so I want to ask you, because obviously you and I actually met before you met Jonathan, because this was the days before actually we've combined the physical and the mental and emotional stuff together. So obviously when we met, our paths crossed. I just want you to kind of give the listeners a bit of kind of context of like, why did we end up meeting in the first place? What kind of called you to end up kind of jumping into this coaching journey?
Well, I guess so I had heard about the coaching before, but of course I was never really sold on it. I guess I always had to me, it always seemed like something that I didn't fully understand. It seemed a bit elusive. I wasn't always sure what was going on. But I heard about it through my ex-personal trainer then. And, she was talking about her experiences and stuff. So it sounded interesting, but I wasn't totally sold. And then, of course, dealing with her on and off a couple of times, especially working with her every day during the week normally, she would see my reactions to simple things. She would see my self-deprecating, or the emotions, and the peaks and the troughs constantly. And I got to a point where I couldn't always control my emotions, and at times, whether in a professional environment or even on my own, I just felt these swirl of emotions bubbling up, and and couldn't articulate them, wasn't sure how to deal with it. And I got to the point where I just didn't know what else to do. So she recommended talking to y'all, and I spoke to you, and I guess that was just it. It just, at that point in time, that was just the answer I needed.
And thank you for sharing that, because there will be so many people listening to this that can totally relate, you know, because you're not alone in that sense of feeling like your emotions can be out of control sometimes, and you just at that almost tipping point. And you know, we've been there in the past as well, you know. And
sure.
it's something very, very powerful when you then hear kind of what you're like now. And that's where we're going to know. So before we go there, I'm curious to know, like, what did you expect, like when we obviously met, and then you was like in this point of like, is this something I want to do, is it not something I want to do? Obviously you chose to kind of jump into the journey, but what was going through your mind? Like, what did you expect from coaching?
Well, to be very honest, I wasn't, even after our first interaction, I wasn't totally sold. And yes, you know, it felt like, I mean, speaking to you felt like a safe place. And you kind of gave a bit of a background in terms of, you know, we'll just kind of go through the journey, and we'd like approach like your thought process and that kind of stuff. And even though you gave me that kind of background, I wasn't 100% sure. In my mind's eye, and I guess based on whatever information I got, like from different sources previously, I would have felt like it was kind of airy fairy, kind of like, you know, meditation a bit, of maybe some like yoga kind of thing. I wasn't sure. I was like, maybe it was some kind of like, you know.
You and John are the same in that, right? That's what people, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember any time anyone would mention anything about coaching on emotions or psychology, it was like, oh, it's all hairy fairy stuff. It's like, yeah, none of that, thanks. So I'll stick to the physical, what I can see, feel, and touch.
Exactly.
You and Stacey got this thing in common where you like that structure, you like to analyze things, you like to see literally like metrics for things as well. So like,
exactly.
There'll be people listening that can totally relate to that.
Because of course, I look at stats, I look at figures, I look at like facts, right? And of course, because the whole kind of psychology, like coaching kind of thing is like kind of based on your experience, I'm like, but I can't really quantify that. So like, you know, you're not really selling it to me kind of thing. You know, it's like, it takes some time to kind of wrap my head around it, but of course, yeah.
So what did you expect? Like, what was that turning point when you was like, okay, as airy fairy as it sounds, I'm going to go for it? What did you expect?
Well, actually, remember, we met the first time, and because I got to the point where I genuinely didn't know what else to do to taper, or at least to get my emotions under control. And I felt as though there were situations that did not lend for me to be even the least bit emotional, of course, given my male-dominated environment. I was like, okay, let me just try something, anything. At least trying something is better than nothing. So we tried, so we met the first time, and we had like a one-off session, but then I left and went on vacation. And even when I was on vacation and I came back, I wasn't totally like, I'm like, okay, maybe we'll talk, or I'll see where it goes. Maybe I'll think about it a bit more. When I came back, and I ended up sick and in the hospital with my collapsed lung, and I was literally in a situation where I felt like I was at death's door. I felt like I owed it to myself to deal with everything, mental, physical, spiritual, everything. And at that point in time, as much as I was dealing kind of with the physical in terms of PT, and I was kind of dealing with spiritual in terms of my prayer life, I still didn't think that I was looking at everything holistically. So I decided to like give it a try just to see where I would end up, and just to figure out what else is there bothering me, and just approach it and see what's left, what's up there. So.
Listen, like obviously at some stage you obviously then transitioned to working with Jonathan and myself, and I'm just curious if you remember off the top of your head, just from working with both of us, is like what did you really want to achieve? Like, what was the main things that you was like, do you know what, this would be totally worth getting involved with if I just achieved this? Was there anything that you can recall?
Actually, at the time when I was talking to you about, and you had mentioned getting involved in Jonathan, I felt as though we had worked together for so long, and I was working on like my mental wellness and my emotional wellness and everything. And then I was like, I still feel as though I'm struggling with that physical part. And at that point in time, because working with you, I've seen not just um, like immediate benefits, but there were foundational things that I was able to address. At that time, I just kind of wanted to like get to a point where holistically and especially physically, I was in a better place. I didn't think I'd be the ideal model or anything, but I just wanted to be in a place where, because having spoken to yourself and then having like a bit of background in terms of, knowing Jonathan, I mean, what you spoke about in Jonathan and his physical transformation on watching some of the podcasts and watching some of the videos and stuff, I knew that where he came from as well. So at that point in time, I just wanted to be in a better place, a place where I understand like how my body works and I understand how to get the best out of myself. I mean, nothing is ever ideal, it's not perfect, but I wanted to get to a point where I felt comfortable enough to be like, yeah, just better. I'd have to be my ideal image, but at least in a better place where I feel like I could transition and easily, and especially to, I was being selfish in that when I wanted to work with Jonathan because I knew that both of you are working together and you've been working with me, you have a lot of my history as well. And so you'd be able to like tell him and you would talk and I'm like, yeah, and I get the benefit. So
that is one of the perks, right? Is you get two for the kind of the price of one.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we do, really. Two coaches for the price of one. So when you obviously started integrating the physical with the mental and emotional, how did you feel at first? How did you find it all connecting?
actually I was thoroughly impressed, to be honest. At first I wouldn't lie, it was a bit of a challenge because it was a different approach
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure because of course I've had personal trainers for the last 10, 15 years of my life. So, I mean, of course, I've dealt with a lot of different like personal trainers. Um, so it was a totally different approach. And at first, I kind of was, it was a bit strange, but I kind of like eased myself into it. I was like, okay, so I have to remind myself to be a bit more open minded and just not overthink it, which I have a tendency to do. But when I started to to at least integrate like the physical coaching and then the regular coaching with Charlotte, I was like I was impressed because like so much of it kind of like overlapped in terms of the breathing exercises and even the awareness of the body and how like just breathing helps and there's so much of that integration. Let's just like it was amazing, but yet like simple enough to be like, oh, I should have made that connection, but I didn't. And but it was amazing because I didn't expect it, but it felt somewhat natural after having done the breathing and different breathing sequences with Charlotte, and then having to do different breathing sequences with you, but still integrating the physical. It just made it a lot easier, a lot more seamless. So.
Nice. That's great to hear because there are so many principles that are the same when we look at all the different elements of wellness. Right. So even if somebody just worked on like their mental and emotional health, there's still going to be elements there that will intervene in somebody's physical development as well.
True. Even the thoughts and the like, even like now having worked with both of you all and then realizing that, like my thoughts on any like given day and like my movement, how it affects and changing my state and like on looking at those things now and being way more aware of it and integrating them into my life now is like I can see so many things differently. And like in the moment or as the day progresses, because I'm aware of it, like even if it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I can still change my state. I can still stop and breathe, and I still change the outlook of how my day ended up overall. So it's good. It's really really good.
So what was it, just to give our listeners like a sneak peek, what was it like before then? All right, so that's now what's happening, which sounds wonderful. You're gonna have people listening to this are like, but how? Like, but what was you like before? But it's making it sound so easy. So what was it like before?
Oh no, it wasn't easy at all. I mean, to be fair, like even before coaching with you, I mean, I I told myself I was a realist, but I was really a pessimist. I would expect the worst and hope for the best. And that was my mantra for the longest time. Um, and then even though we started coaching and we used to touch on, and we'd talk a lot about mental wellness and thoughts and perceptions and that kind of stuff, and even movement to a certain degree and changing your state. When, I mean, like before Jonathan, yes, as I said, I had different personal trainers and it was helpful. It was really, really helpful. And they all did a great job in their regard at that particular point in time. However, like before dealing with Jonathan, simple things like opening a bottle, my wrist, like my right hand and my right wrist would kill me for like ever. Ever since I was in high school, I could not actually open a twist cap bottle. And people understood that and they just used to take my bottle and open it. But I didn't realize it was a systemic issue where my wrists used to hurt so much. And then before training with Jonathan, um, and doing like certain movements and exercises and him giving me pointers for simple things which I thought was part of who I am and I had to accept. Simple things like opening a bottle, to me now I don't even have to think about it because it's so easy. You know, getting up off the ground without anything close by was a serious struggle, and I'm not an old person, but I used to look like I was close to 90 when I started trying to get up off the floor without anything close by. But after working with Jonathan, I realized that those things aren't who I am. And it didn't have to be a part of me that I accepted. And as much as I didn't go into it expecting that, I was surprised when I actually realized, oh, wow, I'm able to get up off the floor without holding on to a million things. Or I'm able to open a bottle without trying to find some random person to open a bottle for me. It's simple things that I accepted was part of me, but it's not.
Yeah, and
So,
I think a lot of people can kind of relate where they, as they get older and go through the 20s, 30s, they start becoming kind of limited in what they can do because of, obviously, it could be, again, pain or mobility issues. And they just start to accept that as a part of getting older, as a part, and it's not. It's like any damage you've done, you can reverse. You can improve your lifestyle. You can improve your mobility. You can reduce your pain. You can have a better quality of movement in life. And it's just, again, making that choice to do so and not kind of believing that kind of myth that it's just part of growing older. Like I just have to accept it and live with it. But no, you don't. You
yeah,
can.
I thought so for so long. I genuinely thought so. Like honestly, I thought 4 to 5 hours sleep was all I could possibly do. I thought that back pain was part of my life, no matter what. I thought that my wrist hurting was a real struggle I would never change. I honestly thought that that's who I am. As I got older, it would just get worse, and it's just par for the course, and just accept it and move on. But working with you all, I realized like that is not something I have to accept, and I can be mobile and I can be somewhat agile until I get however long. Once I continue at it, so
It's so
that's really.
nice listening to you speak. And the reason being is because, I mean, in the early days when we first met, I don't think I recall any sentence where you said, I can, I can, I can, I can. All right. And it was very much, it's like, really? I can do that? Really? Me? Are you sure? Like it was more coming from that space of surprise and that idea that this is the first time you're thinking that certain things are possible, and not necessarily just physical, but generally speaking. I know one of the things that you said you wanted to achieve when we very first met was, getting answers. You was always curious, like, why do I feel this way? Why do I think this way? And you was like just very inquisitive. You was like, I just want to know why. And
Yes,
it was just all about self-discovery in the end. And I think it's really interesting what John said there is like this belief system of things that we choose to accept or don't accept. I'm curious to know what within your own belief system has changed the most throughout your coaching experience.
what would um I would say that um I would say my worthiness and my sorry. Oh, sorry.
It's good, like, because it's a real nice change that you've been through.
I guess it took a long time for me to accept that I am human and um, mm, I don't have to be perfect, but I will be, and I am enough for the right people, honestly.
Absolutely. What are you feeling right now? What's going on?
No, I guess it's just I guess I don't usually think about um my thought processes before we started and then how I think now. I don't usually think about it because to me, growth is growth, right? Once you've become better, that you are where you are right now. But I guess I don't usually think about it unless one, I feel the need to share with someone who is struggling, or I'm asked a question really. But I don't usually think about the process, and I'm just recognizing how little I thought of myself before, and how much where I am now, um, how my outlook has changed, how I can actually appreciate life a lot more, how accepting I am of things when they happen. And I guess how I don't allow every little thing to affect me as much the way it used to before. I guess how much more in control I am. Because I always felt as though things were happening to me. But that's not true. Like I used to say, I was used to say, no, it's not what happens or what people say, it's your reaction to it. I never really believed it. But now I live it. And it's different to just say something and to live something. And to live in it just makes a huge difference.
That's a beautiful thing because like again, just listening to you say that for me is just like gives me goosebumps, honestly, because like you've worked so hard for it as well. It's like you've done the work, you've shown up for yourself for a long time now, and just stepping in even more to who you are, going back to what we said earlier, and you've disregarded the things that you're not, and you're stepping into it even more every single day. It's an ongoing process for everybody, and that's why I enjoy working with you so much, is because like I constantly see somebody showing up for themselves and giving it their all and challenging their own perceptions and challenging the way you see the world. Like you said, you work in a demanding environment, and for you to now go from knowing deeply that you're embodying this sense of worthiness and that actually you don't have to sweat the small stuff and that you keep that perspective is huge. Like that's so good, and there's going to be so many people listening to this again that just can totally relate to maybe experiencing the same things that you have until now.
They can, because honestly, I went from going to work every day, dreading it and being disgruntled and swearing every other sentence, or actually every other word sometimes, to just going to the office and either being quiet or just laughing at the silliest of things, or even at when something goes wrong, I just laugh it off because I know that it doesn't matter. Like a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, it really doesn't matter. So yeah, I hope everybody else could find that kind of realization that I came to. Because honestly, you only have one chance to live, and it's useless to spend all of your time focused on wrong things.
Absolutely.
You don't get a redo. You don't get a redo.
Definitely. It's like you said, that when you kind of change your perception of things were happening to you instead of things happening for you. And that's the thing, when people start to change that, instead of thinking, oh, why is this happening to me? And start thinking this is happening for me because it's going to help me grow, whether perceived good or bad, then you start to, like you say, you just accept things for as they are, and you don't take things too seriously. You take everything as a learning opportunity to grow and become a better version of yourself, don't you?
Definitely.
So
And to be fair, like when Charlotte Phil said it, I was like, you're right. Like, to be honest, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, right. Like, of course, happened to me. Like, don't you see it? Like, I used to have that mental discussion. I wouldn't tell you that then. But I'd be like, She's not seeing it like it's happening to me. And then now I'm like, seriously, Stacey, like it wasn't happening to you.
It's so good because, you know, like John just said there, it's like the things are happening for you, but the realization that you've had that it actually is, and that you're learning and growing, and just the way you just described like that biggest shift and that biggest belief moment for you, and that sense of worthiness is coming because you've been in this constant growth mode ever since you begun. And it was almost like a little surprise for you just now when that come out of your mouth when you said about worthiness, because it's almost like getting to the mountaintop and looking back and seeing how far you've come. And that's a very special moment. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
That's what it feels like. That's definitely what it feels like.
All right. So I'm curious to know, like, in terms of coaching, like, just what's been your like favorite parts of the process, would you say, from working with obviously both of us?
Favorite part of the process? I may have to choose one.
Well, there's two of us.
Yeah, favorite part.
Okay, I'll separate out. I guess. Okay. I can't really tell. Like it's. I know it might sound strange, but I guess the tasks that y'all give me, being able to like throw myself into the tasks, get them done, and then get your feedback. For me, it's been the favorite part because I guess because I'm goal oriented and solution oriented and I want to achieve things. Yes, it's been difficult. I wouldn't lie to tell you. Sometimes the tasks are more than just challenging. It forces me to like step out of my comfort zone to change the way I think, I do, I move. And a lot of times it's a bit of a challenge. And while I'm doing them, I'm like, oh gosh, I can't do this. I'm like, yes, I can. And then I have to like talk myself through actually getting the task done sometimes, but then actually being able to finish the tasks and get your feedback. And then like sometimes the affirmation or sometimes the guidance to just like do things differently. And like I said, it means a lot because I feel as though like, I don't know, I just feel as though it actually feels like real growth. Like I can see like quantifiable changes in those moments, in those times when you give me a task to reflect on something, or when Jonathan gives me a task to do something this particular week. And granted, sometimes it might take more than a week for me to get into that habit, and it might require setting reminders and writing notes, and it might require me to give a lot of effort. But then when I've done it, and then I see the actual growth and I see the true benefit, it's not like when you're going to school and somebody gives you homework and you feel like you have to finish it. You actually feel as though like you finish your homework, but you see like real progress. You see real change. I feel like, yeah, I feel differently. And I know it sounds funny because I feel differently. It's just that you can't unknow something, as you've always said. Like I can't unknow or unhear something. So once that awareness, now once that realization hits, and once y'all have forced me out of my comfort zone and I've done that, I don't really have an excuse. I can't make up a random excuse why I can't do it anymore because I've done it. I've achieved it. I've seen it. Just that's to me the best part.
Perfect. Love that.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And there's probably people who are going to be listening to this who've maybe been thinking about coaching, or maybe even just this, actually listening to you now may have triggered that thought, thinking actually maybe a coach might help me. So anyone who's kind of thinking about coaching, what would you say to them? What's the one thing, or even a few things that you would say to them that would kind of get them to take that step forward, to seek out kind of that guidance and that help?
Coaching is a necessity because we all need that one person or people who will be objective in a trustworthy environment, in an environment where you feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable, or to be your real self without judgment. But you need that person who will be able to be objective, not to make you feel worse about yourself or to critique you, but to make you better. It's like I never thought that I'd be one of the people who needed a coach, to be honest. But now that I've had, like, you guys, I can't picture my life without it, because it's knowing that you have that person who has the knowledge and the background and the experience to guide you when you are facing a challenge, or when you're not sure about a particular aspect of your life. And it's not just to pacify you, but it's actually to make you a better person.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah.
Is you gonna say?
No, yeah.
Listen, that's great, because anybody listening to this that might be on the fence about coaching, I'm the same as you. I never ever thought, oh, no, why would I want a coach? Why do I need a coach? I was always like, no, I'll figure it out, or I'll find the right answer somewhere, or I'll just keep going the way I am, kind of thing. And it took me to kind of experience a similar kind of thing as you, to be like, actually, no, do you know what? Having somebody that can actually almost see around corners because they've been there and they know and they've got the expertise, it really speeds up your own growth process. And ultimately, alongside the growth, is you like you said, you feel different. You start to experience life in a very, very different way, and that's something that is very profound when you start experiencing it in the way that you want to, and it starts to influence the other people that you're surrounded by as well, doesn't it? And that's really, really powerful.
Definitely.
So, Stacey, listen, is there anything else you would like to share with our audience, since you're here and you can say whatever you want to our wonderful listeners? Is there any words of wisdom that you would like to share that you haven't already?
I guess the only other thing that I would say is that the whole coaching experience is not just selfish. It's not just for me. It's not just for my growth. The whole coaching experience, once you give your all and you deep dive into it, it doesn't just benefit you as a person. It benefits your interaction with everyone, your relationships with everyone around you. And it genuinely has a ripple effect. Like, I know that's what you all try to promote, but it genuinely does. And I guess for me, more so than anything else, I am 8,000 miles away from my family and my closest friends. But coaching with you guys, and the more times I mention your names, it's made such a huge impact on my family, on my closest friends. Like, they not only see a difference in me, but me being who I am now, I can help them in a better, like, help them to be better as well, and give them better advice in their situations. So it's not just for me. It definitely has a ripple effect.
Listen, that's why you're a joy to coach, because you pay it forward in everything that you do. It doesn't matter if it's a stranger where you live, or if it's your immediate family, but you always have that thought for other people, usually before yourself. But it's a beautiful thing, because now you're actually giving from a place that's full, and that is a really nice thing, and it's exceptionally powerful for the people that you're surrounded by. So I just want to take this opportunity, obviously, to say thanks for being on the podcast, but also like for letting us be on your journey as well. Like, it's one thing to have somebody that kind of signs up for coaching. It's another thing to have somebody that goes all in with everything on every single level. And you definitely show up to the plate every time and do that.
Definitely fully immerse yourself in the experience. And that's the thing. The coaching is not about us. Coaching is about you. And like you said earlier, you've done it. Like, we just provide the tools and the skills, and we just guide you. Like, it's like kind of, you're slightly off track. We just kind of slightly push you back on track, and you're doing the work. And that's it. It's not about us as coaches to judge you or to criticize what you do, or what you like. You can't do this, you can't do that. It's about, okay, where are you now? Where do you want to be? And we just help guide you in that direction. And as every month goes by, every little bit of guidance from us becomes kind of quicker and quicker to guide you, because you know what you need to do, and you start kind of going in that direction faster and faster. And that's kind of the job as a coach, is to, over time, is to hand the reins over to you, So there's less on our part, more on your part, and it just that gap becomes bigger and bigger. So we're here just as a support system for you once you're ready to really like go out like fully on your own.
And that's
I never have to come out to my own, but yeah.
I think you know, John is like definitely on the same page as me when we say that you literally are like the ideal person that we work with, somebody that, like we said, shows up for themselves. You take on any feedback that we give you, you show up wholeheartedly, and you pay it forwards. So thank you very much for being on the podcast. We really, really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to see what even more growth we're going to have moving forwards.
Definitely. No, thank you all for actually having me, and for honestly being there on the journey. Like no matter what struggles I face, you all are always there. I feel that you both create a really safe space for me to always do more and be more. And honestly, for that, there's no words that I could thank you all, honestly.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.